All right, guys, so we've got this idea now of what GMPs are actually about. So, good manufacturing practices and manufacturing something at a company. I might be one of those employees. I'm working in that facility. And if it's Food, Drug, or Cosmetic Act, we said, or food, drug, or cosmetic product, we said that it's going to go under the FD&C Act. And we talked a little bit about that act and what it kind of states and its overall mission. So, therefore, we're looking for safe. We're looking for making sure it is what it is, its strength, its quality, and its purity. If all of those are checked, then we're good to go as a company. So the question that you might have is, why on earth did the government decide to step in and give some oversight here to make sure that these things are going according to plan? And one of those reasons, it's not the only one, but one of those reasons was a book. And this book was called The Jungle. Ho, ho, ho. Have you read The Jungle? This novel is basically it was intended to be a story of immigration. An immigrant coming to the United States, starting a life, making money, supporting family. That's what this was supposed to all be about. And it was detailed accounts of what was going on through that process. As far as getting here, as far as getting the first job, as far as working for an American company, and then making money and supporting families and just starting life in a whole new way, right? That's what The Jungle was supposed to be about. But that was never the take-home message of The Jungle. Instead, The Jungle took off as a representation of the horror stories of the meat packing industry. That's what this turned in to be. When this immigrant went to work at a meat packing facility, he detailed all of the things that he would see throughout the day. The things that did not make sense. The things that was revolting and disgusting. The things that he saw that went on throughout a daily basis that made him question, how on earth does this product get sold? How on earth does this product make it to market? That's what The Jungle became known as. Even though that was just a small portion of what the story was all about, it was a representation of the American meat packing industry and all of the horror stories that were coming from it during that time. So I want you to imagine working for your very first company in the United States. And as you're working in this meatpacking industry, you see people that are working with boils and blisters all over their hands. And they're handling all of this food with no gloves. You see people maybe chop their thumbs off during the meat slicers. And they just wrap it up and keep on going. And who knows where that thumb went. But that thumb went into the grinder with all of that other meat. And it's going to probably be ground up and sold to a consumer. I want you to think of maybe these acid vats, almost like Batman and Joker, that's just sitting around in the company. And people falling into the acid vats, getting injured or killed. One story after another happened within The Jungle. And at some point, the government steps in and says, whoa, wait a minute. Is this really going on? Like, are you really bringing in cows that have open wounds, sores, and pus, and slaughtering them and using that meat and grinding it up with everything else when you knew good and well they were sick from the very beginning? And all of that pus and all of that infection is just getting sliced right on in and grinded up with everything else? Are you crazy? Well, of course, the government decides to step in. Who wouldn't decide to step in if these were the things that were going on during that time. So part of what you're going to find in this module is an assignment, and that assignment is going to be focused on the jungle. And that is going to get you to read an excerpt of what I think is kind of the most important piece out of this thing, according to good manufacturing practices. And you'll answer a couple of questions on what is good manufacturing practice and how does that relate to something, a story like the jungle. With that in mind, I also want you to keep in mind, this is not the only story. This is one of many, right? So, for instance, there was a compound called sulfanilamide, and it was an elixir that was given. That elixir was given to people. I want you to think of this almost like a cough syrup or some type of ailment. Swig it down, you'll be okay. Well, it led to 109 deaths. 109 people died from this. And the reason is because the company that made that product actually used ethylene glycol as a solvent. And ethylene glycol is antifreeze. So they were making these products, and there was no F&DC Act. And they were giving these products out to consumers, and they would swig them and take them and trust them when they shouldn't have been, but they knew no better. And this ethylene glycol or antifreeze was actually setting up kidney stones in their system, and they would even die from the kidney stones causing a problem, or be sent to a hospital because of it. We also had an account way back when with eyelash dye. Okay, a dye used to put on your eyelashes, make them big and beautiful and pretty. But don't get it in your eyeball because it can make you go blind too at the same time. What? Are you kidding me? We had a company that was actually making this cosmetic, and the dye that was used in that cosmetic product that was meant for eyelashes would cause people to go blind if they got it in their eyeball? Oh my God. Who's in charge? And then finally, from the jungle, that was just one account, but there were many. But the food industry took a hit too. I mean, the food industry is ate up with the stories of using rancid or rotten ingredients in the manufacturing process. Labeling things the wrong way, lying about the expiration dates, lying about the nutrition facts. Oh no, we got consumers that are looking for sugar content. Well, let's make sure that we lower that sugar content on our nutrition label, and maybe they will never know who's going to have a lab at their house to test this. They're just going to read the nutrition label and trust us. Well, someone had to put a stop to it. There's got to be some oversight. There's got to be some regulation. And that is the purpose of GMP. So, 1962, we have the FD&C Act. Absolutely. Everything's going according to plan. FDC Act is out there. We are monitoring those 5 things on these products that's getting made by these companies. Everything's going great. But as you can imagine, people try to beat the system. So 2 senators came in and amended 1962, the FD&C Act. What did that amendment state? Something that I think made common sense, but at the time it had to be put on paper. Look at this. Pharmaceutical companies, you cannot make and sell sugar pills or placebos. I'm sorry, you can't do it. It's not going to be allowed. So if I go back to the original FD&C Act, here it is, and they're looking at safety. Oh, sugar pill. That's safe. It's sugar. Check. We're looking at the identity and strength. Well, takes a special type of test to get that one done. So if we just sell a pill and we maybe don't put an active ingredient in it and we don't put how much is there, then nobody will be the wiser and we're not violating any rules. The quality and the purity. Oh no, these are sugar pills. They're placebos. There's nothing in them. It's not going to do anything for you, but we're going to sell them to a consumer. In what real world does that make any sense? Well, they felt the need to amend it, and that was one of the amendments. But more importantly, this amendment included this magic word, and this magic word was efficacy. Not only did we want it to be safe and pure, and the active ingredient there in the proper amount, but we didn't want them to be placebos or sugar pills in the realm of this idea that it's not going to do anything for you. So, for instance, let's say that a company made a product and it cured a big ache in your large, big toe. That's all that it did. Oh, we got a new disease going around and it's affecting your big toe and it makes it hurt really, really bad. So we're going to make a pill and we're going to bottle it up and we're going to manufacture and we're going to prove that it's safe. We're going to prove that, there's something in that pill or that tablet. We're going to prove how many milligrams are in that pill or tablet. We're going to make sure there's no impurities in it at all. And we're going to sell it to you and you're going to buy it. And you're going to be like, oh, this is going to be the best pill for my big toe ever. And then you take it, you swallow it down the hatch, and you're like, well, that didn't really fix my problem. Maybe I need to take another. Maybe 2 more. Maybe 4 more. Maybe 30 more. I need to take something to make that pain go away, if that's what's happening. That is not an effective product. And this amendment put a stop to that. That's really what it was after. It put a stop to these what we called sugar pills or placebos. And it said, listen, if you're going to market a product, you want to make sure that that product works. It has to work. If it doesn't do what it states that it's going to do, you're not going to be allowed to manufacture that product and market it in that way. You can manufacture the product, but the labeling and the intention of that product cannot be for that particular purpose, right? You can sell it to consumer. You just can't say it will help your big toe. All right, so that put a stop to a lot of the fakeness that began to show up on the consumer markets. These tricks, I call them snake oil salesmen. It begins to put a stop to a lot of those. So that way consumers can feel even better about the products if they're marketed in a certain way about those products that they're going to purchase. All right. The problem, though, with this is that they required phase 2 and phase 3 clinical trials. What this meant is additional testing. That is what phase 2 and phase 3 did. So I want you to think of phase 2 and phase 3 as the same darn test that they did in phase 1. But this time it is with smaller populations of people, and then larger populations of people. And it's all about taking baby steps in order to get to our ultimate goal. So the way that this thing works is typically a drug is going to be made. A drug is tested to make sure that it's safe, not on a human population first. And then after that clears out that trial or that phase, we then go into a smaller group of humans, and then we do a bigger group of humans. And that requires a lot of time and it requires a lot of money. This is one of the reasons that pharmaceutical drugs have become so expensive. And it is due to the time that is required for phase 2 and phase 3. And it's due to the money that is involved in phase 2 and phase 3. We're talking about hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars that's getting sunk into the testing in the phase clinical trials, especially in phase 2 and in phase 3. So this was new things that the government wanted pharmaceutical companies to do especially. And this was a way to help ensure that the drug was effective. We had enough data points. We have a big enough population now that we can legitimately say, yes, it did what its intention was to do. If you had a headache, take that Motrin, take that aspirin, take that Tylenol, make your headache go away. Did it do that? Yes or no? Well, phase 2 and phase 3 would be all of the documentation and the laboratory testing and the human testing that goes on to make sure that that is actually effective, or that tablet works for its intended purpose. So this is one of the drawbacks, though. You increase the regulations, you increase the red tape, you make that product more expensive to purchase in the long run. And the prices of drugs began to skyrocket because of this. All right. Okay, so with that said, I keep talking about this awful, like, pharmaceutical type of environment, but I want you to understand that, this is actually going to happen everywhere. It's talking about manufacturing, and manufacturing is going to happen here too. So here's just how hot dogs are made. I mean, this is a manufacturing thing, right?
Some sausage makers who first came up with the idea.
All right, so in this video, you're going to see a way that they will make hot dogs. Okay, yeah. So 4th of July, summer's coming up. You're probably taking this course in the spring. And you're going to slap some of those weenies on the grill, and you're going to char them up a little bit, make them taste real good, slather them with mustard or ketchup or chili or onions, and yum, yum, yum. All right, so good manufacturing practices. This is food product. This follows under FD&C Act. So we got to make sure that this hot dog is... 1, safe to eat. 2, is it really a hot dog? And then what are we putting in it to make it a hot dog? Is it quality? I mean, I'm not going to bite into it and find a roach, am I? I hope not. And is it pure? So on the manufacturing line, it's like not coming in contact with anything it shouldn't be. We keeping everything clean. Is everything pure? So FD&C Act right here with a freaking hot dog. All right, so here we go.
There are reports of German immigrants selling them from push carts in New York's Bowery as far back as the 1860s. A century and a half later, hot dogs are still the #1 treat on the street.
Yum. Here's hot dogs. Yum. Look at those shiny hot dogs that are not cooked.
Dogs are made from a mix of pork, beef, and chicken.
Oh, okay. So made from a mix of pork and beef and chicken. Well, I know it's probably not chicken breast, because that would be sold as chicken breast. That's good quality of meat, right? And I know it's probably not steaks, because that would be sold as a steak. It's not going to be sold to a hot dog manufacturer, and they're not going to use cuts of steak and chicken breast in order to make these hot dogs. All right, so in other words, what's happening here is that they are taking the scrap pieces of hot dogs, or scrap pieces of animals that are not going to be used for anything, and turning them into hot dogs. So we're taking scrap meat, and that's what you're finding in these boxes. They're just really nice about it. So they're taking scrap chicken, scrap pork, and scrap beef. In other words, lips and buttholes. And they are grinding this into a grinder and making a mush out of it. That's what they're doing.
Pieces of meat left over from cutting steaks or pork chops.
Ah, okay. Pieces of meat left over. Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Very nice way to put it. Very political. Okay. But I want to pause this here for a minute, because we're talking about good manufacturing practices. And the good manufacturing practices are going to include everything that you see here. This is the manufacturing plant, right? So let's talk about the floors. How do they get cleaned? Who cleans them? How often do they get clean? How do you make sure they are clean? Let's talk about the tray that's here that all this meat is getting dumped into. Who cleans this? How often does that get cleaned? Do you swab it? Do you make sure that there's no kind of nasty growth that's happening on these trays that's coming in contact with this possible food ingredient that a consumer is going to eventually eat? What about the bins? Like, this is the raw ingredient right here. Where does this come from? What plant has sent you this? That is the raw ingredient. Did you test that to make sure that's okay? Did you swab any of this? Did you do any testing on that at all, period? Because that's part of the good manufacturing practices that go on. This is straight up GMP here, all right? In this dump bin, there's probably a grinder, right? And that grinder is going to have to be tested as well. Ah, look, scrap meat, lips and buttholes. Nom, 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 nom. Oh, there we go. Okay, so it looks like all of this gets dumped down into the bin that's here, and there's a grinder that's down here at the bottom. That's going to grind up all of the slop meat. So all of these pieces and parts that nobody wants to eat for any other purpose get sent to the hot dog maker, and they're going to grind it up, and they're going to mush it out. And at this point, it kind of looks like ground meat. So ground hamburger meat, ground pork, ground chicken. That's kind of what this looks like coming out the end. But folks, on the inside of that is a grinder blade. That's part of manufacturing. Who is testing the grinder blade? Who is making sure that that grinder blade is working the way that it's supposed to work? Are you swabbing that to make sure that no nasties are coming through to poison us or send us to the hospital? I hope so. But that's part of GMP, right? That's what this is all about. All right, so let's keep going.
Trimmings are ground the same way butchers chop up hamburger meat, by pushing the cuts through grated metal plates.
All right, so there's our little meat worms. So our little meat worms have came out of the side, and now they get dumped into a bin. This bin, folks, that bin is GMP. It's got to be. It's coming in contact with your food. So who sterilized the bin? When was it done last? Who cleaned it? Where's the documentation? Where's the proof? Did they get proper training on how to do this the right way? I hope so. But that's part of GMP. That's what this is about. So I hope that you get the idea now, the bigger idea of what GMP is all about. The GMP is about the manufacturing and the processing of these products. Food, drug, or cosmetic. It doesn't matter. That's what this is about. Meatworms. Yum. There we go. Yeah, lips, buttholes, packaged into a worm.
Processed chicken trimmings are added to the ground meat.
Yeah, look at that. All right, processed trimmings are added to the meat. AKA pink slime. That's what this is called. So after all of the slop gets grinded up and turned into a mush and made little meat worms, we're also going to eventually get it to a point that we call this meat slime or pink meat. If it's pink, it's meat. That's what your food industry says, at least. As long as it's pink, it is meat. By definition. Oh, give me a break, right? So here we see our Laffy Taffy. And that Laffy Taffy pink slime is just mushed up, finely processed, heavily processed food now that is coming out of a dump chute. And it's getting ready to be mixed and blended with all of the other scrap meat that we are using to make a hot dog with. Again, let's take a look at these workers. Good manufacturing, right? So how are the workers? How's their hygiene? Did they come to work sick? Do they have training? Where's the proof of that training? Look at what they have on. Are they wearing the appropriate garments? Do they have gloves? Do they have hair nets? Do they have masks? Making sure they don't spit all into your food, or making sure they don't rip out a wad of their hair and shove it down into the pink slime. I mean, I think if I was eating this pink slime, that wad of hair will be the last thing that I'll be worried with. But there we go. I mean, it's part of the processing hot dogs. Okay, whatever. So let's keep going.
Chicken trimmings are added to the ground meat.
Yeah.
Followed by food starch.
Whoa, followed by food starch. Oh, that means that the pink meat or the pink slime is going to be too runny to be formed into a hot dog. So we need some glue to keep it together. So AKA food starch. Here you go. So we're going to add some food starch in. That way we bind it all together and we keep it all together. Okay, so we start forming a hot dog at this moment. But this is an ingredient, and it's an ingredient in the product. And that ingredient better be tested. So we better make sure that this ingredient is not contaminated, that it carries with it some purity, that it carries with it, like that is actually starch on the inside and it's not something else by accident. We want to make sure the label matches the stuff on the inside. So some laboratory tests are going to be concerned here because this is an ingredient in order to make the product with.
Salt.
Yeah, salt makes anything better. If they can salt things as much as they want to salt things, and it will make you crave it more and more and more. It also does a great job to kill bacteria and stuff as well.
And other flavorings.
Oh, flavorings? Oh, they're going to put like ground mustard and stuff in here? Well, that's another ingredient that's going to have to be GMP tested, right? I mean, so someone's got to do it. The GMP side of the house is going to do it, or the GLP side of the house is going to do it. But manufacturing or the laboratory is going to have to play a role in this in some form or fashion, because we need to make sure that's ground mustard. We need to make sure it's pure. We need to make sure there's no contamination in it. We need to make sure it's like legit before we add it and dump it into the vat. All right, so ground mustard, but flavorings. Oh, the world of flavors. That world of flavors right there is to make all of this nasty slime mushy stuff taste even better. That's what this is all about. Because the taste of your scrapped, mushed up lip and butthole meat is not going to taste very good with starch and salt. So they're going to have to add some stuff in it to make it go, yum, 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 yum. Give me another hot dog, please.
These flavorings vary depending on where the hot dogs are to be sold, because people in different regions have different tastes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Look at that. Yum, yum. People in different regions have different tastes, so we might have to use different flavorings in order to flavor our products. Yeah.
Water is sprayed into the mix.
Oh, water. Water is used in the product. That means that this water better be tested for good manufacturing practices, right? So this is an ingredient used in the production, so that water better be tested. Someone's got to do it. GMP's going to do it. GLP's going to do it. You better print off those reports. You better have those in-house, because an auditor or reviewer will want to see it. So you want to make sure that water is tested clean.
And everything is blended together in a big
Ah,
vat.
look at that. All that mushed up hot dog, scrap meat.
Corn syrup adds a dash of sweetness.
Oh, corn syrup gets added now. Oh, okay. So the salt and the starch and the flavorings, quote, aren't enough. So they add corn syrup. Why? Well, it sweetens it up a little bit, makes you like it a little bit better. You get addicted to the sugar. It's just like caffeine or nicotine or anything else. Give me more. I want more hot dogs. Give me more scrap lip butthole meat. I love it. All right, so here's corn syrup. Corn syrup is an ingredient. It's going to have to be tested. Someone's got to do it. It's part of GMP, and either the GMP side or the GLP better do some testing on this particular ingredient before it's manufactured and produced into a product. There we go. Yeah, looks even better. Look at that lip butthole meat. Oh,
The addition of
yeah.
even more water helps to disperse the ingredients and make the hot dogs juicier.
Oh, makes the hot dogs juicier. So extra water gets added in after the corn syrup to make it moist and juicier for you to bite into. That sounds great to me. Serve me 2 or 3 of them right now, right? Where's trolley
Another
stop?
machine then purees the meat batter into a fine emulsion and vacuums
Yeah,
out.
look at that meat batter. Oh, okay. So now we're at a point where we have mushed up all of the scrap meat, and I call that, again, lips and buttholes. So all of that goes through the manufacturing process. We add all of these extra ingredients into it for flavoring and preservatives, and now we blend it up to a point that looks nothing like what meat looks like, and now we pump this out into just a pink slime that goes onto a conveyor belt. So they call this the meat batter. That's the term that he used, right? Meat batter. Yum, yum, yum. So this meat batter is going to be used to make some hot dogs with. All right, let's keep going. Look at that. Oh, okay. So more manufacturing that goes on here. What's getting ready to happen? Well, it looks like some rollers are getting added to these instruments or these machines. These better be swabbed. These better be inspected. These better be tested. That's part of GMP. Food comes in contact with it. It looks like eventually over here on the back side, you'll see these strips of little hot dogs that are dangling down from the ceiling. they are going into a some type of crate or bin. That also comes in contact with your food. That better be tested, swabbed. We've got to make sure they stay clean because I don't want contamination over here either. Again, on the floor, all of the workers gloved up. We've got suits on. We've got hair bonnets. We even have, earphones. And a lot of people will think, well, that's a safety concern, isn't it? Well, probably the production is so loud in there that the noise of the production and the equipment that is on the inside would be more of a safety hazard for those people's ears than not being able to hear something. So earmuffs are going to go on, but GMP all over the place.
Long rolls of cellulose tubing are loaded into the stuffing machine.
Cellulose tubing? Oh, well, cellulose is kind of like paper, right? Absolutely. And all that pink slime goes into a little cellulose tube.
Into these casings, twisting it every 5
There's
1/4.
Paula. Paula is doing great work. So she is standing here on the end, and she's going to catch these little lip and butthole sticks as they shoot out of that machine. And then she's going to make sure they get dumped down into the bin like they're supposed to. Go, Paula. Look at you.
It takes just 35 seconds to make a chain of hot dogs that would span a soccer field twice.
35 seconds to make enough lip and butthole sticks to span a soccer field 2 times. So these machines are shooting these things out left and right. But again, these instruments better be inspected. They better be swabbed. They better be tested. They better make sure that things are staying clean. Because look, Paula, I don't know what this is right there. I don't know what that is supposed to be. But I guarantee you that that has been there for a little bit of time, Paula. And Paula, you need to make sure that quality assurance comes out and quality control comes out, and they make sure that this is not contamination that's going to cause us problems in the future. Because an auditor is going to come in, Paula, and an auditor is going to ask you, what is that dangling there at the end of that poop chute that comes out as far as those lips and butthole sticks? All right, so bins get wheeled over. We keep everything clean. And now these lips and butthole sticks go into the instrument to get hung out to dry a little bit, right? Notice they've got a colored casing on them right now. There's like a black stripe that goes down the sides. So we're going to somewhat pre-cook these, or they are going to at least. So that way you just don't eat raw chicken and raw pork and raw beef that has been mushed up into meat batter and raw corn syrup and stuff that goes in. I mean, nobody wants that, right? So we're going to have to pre-cook these a little bit.
Then, 3 of those hot dog chains
there
are
they
linked
go.
together to make an even longer string, and they're loaded several at a time into another machine, which drapes the hot dogs onto moving racks.
There we go, getting
The
ready to cook
process is
those meat
carefully
sticks.
timed so that a twist always lands on the bar.
So again, instrumentation is going to have to be inspected, swabbed, making sure it stays clean from floor to ceiling. I mean, that's what this is all about, right?
The racks shunt the hot dogs through a liquid smoke shower, then into an oven with several cooking zones.
A liquid smoke shower. Doesn't that sound fancy? I mean, that is like going to the sauna. That's what these little hot dogs have just did.
The liquid smoke seeps through the casing and adds flavor to the dogs as they bake. Hot out of the oven, these franks are drenched in cold, salty water.
Oh, cold, salty water. That salt, was it tested? That salt, did you prove that it was salt? That salty water, was that water tested to make that with? Was it the same water as what you used before? We like to see documentation. We would like to see everything that goes on with that, please. This steamer that you're showing us here, or the smoker, whatever you want to call it, was this tested? Was this swabbed? When's the last time repair or maintenance was done on it? How are you making sure that it's actually getting to temperature and doing what it's supposed to do? I mean, all of that's got to be tracked, every bit of it.
To chill them in preparation for packaging.
And there's our famous meat sticks.
The hot dogs then file down to an unloading zone.
butthole, butthole, lip,
Here,
lip,
a
lip,
machine
lip,
pulls them off the
butthole, lip.
bars onto a conveyor. Then, the hot dogs slide off the conveyor into metal containers.
Right, now we get closer to
If
packaging.
you've been wondering about those black stripes on the casings, all is about to be revealed.
There
The
they
stripe is a
go.
marker attached to the casing. The absence of a
Keep in mind, all of that is cellulose, pretty much paper or plant material right up through
black
there.
stripe means the hot dog is cooked and ready for packaging.
All right, so now we get another bin. That better be swabbed, that better be tested, that better be cleaned, right? You got to show paperwork, when it was done, how it was done, who did it, what was their training like, did they get proper training when they did this? And we get hot dogs that are now kind of partially cooked at least, and we see a black stripe onto the casing. So that means they are ready to be removed out of their casing now. So
Inside
what
the
was
machine,
pink slime
a tiny knife slits each casing
now is
along the
cooked.
top. Then, steamy air blows the casings right off the dogs.
And now the starch has held it together. Flavorings have made it taste
Kills
better.
700 hot dogs a minute.
And there they go, one after another. Look at how great those lips
An
and butthole
inspector makes
sticks
sure
look.
the casing has been completely removed and that there are no defects in the dogs. Then, it's into a
Defects in the dog. I think the defect in the dog happened when the dog was first formed. That's when the defect took place.
device that looks like a plastic bicycle chain. The sprockets position the hot dogs for packaging.
Again, coming in contact with your food, this instrumentation needs to be tested like all the others. Swabbed, maintained, troubleshooted. Keep a logbook of everything that you see.
This factory manufactures an incredible 300,000 hot dogs an hour. That's close to 2.5 million per.
That plastic, the packaging material comes in contact with your food. Somebody better be testing the packaging product. Somebody better make sure that that's clean, it's pure, there's no impurities that come along with it. It's safe for food contact. Someone better be doing that, because that comes in contact with your food that's going to eventually go to the consumer.
Per shift. They really do churn them out like sausages. Fire up the grill and a mouth-watering meal is just minutes away.
Yeah, make mustard, that make it even better. Yum, yum. Forget everything that you've seen. That bun and that mustard. Oh, yeah, wonderful. What a cuisine. All right, so that gives you a little bit of insight to good manufacturing practices, or the mentality of good manufacturing practices. And now you can see how this has resulted from stories like The Jungle, where these people are going into a plant that maybe looks something like that, very early stages in the United States, and things are just awful. Blood everywhere, diseased animals, people getting injured on the job. All of that stuff is getting blended up in food products, coming in contact with the product, and you're purchasing that and you have no clue that all of that has went on the inside. So that again is why GMP was a necessity for the United States. All right. So anything food, anything drug, anything cosmetic wise has to go under that same scrutiny. Okay. So this video is going to stop here. It went a little bit longer, but that's because I wanted to show you those wonderful little hot dogs. I mean, so good for your health. And then in the next video, we'll pick up from here.